Criminals are often deemed as dangerous, yet many of them are highly intelligent. There's occasions when we hear about their activities when they pull off the perfect crime. This particular offender, or a gang of them, might have stolen something of high monetary value. In some cases enough to be considered life-changing. To ensure their escape, they might take a taxi to the airport, board a plane to a faraway country, followed by a life of luxury. That actually happens from time to time, as we're aware. However, we're not talking about that kind of villain. In fact, we're going to the opposite end of the spectrum to look at those with limited intellect. Some of them have hurt themselves in the process of stealing or were captured due to a lack of planning. Hi there, my friend, I'm Royston, and welcome back to the channel. I thought that this week we'd cover something a little lighter. And who knows, our brains might even release some tiny molecules during this episode to help relieve any stress we might currently be feeling. With that being said, let's get ready for some light tea and crime. Coming in at number 4 is this man, who walks into a building society. He makes his way to the cashier. But what does he do next? It appears as if he handed a note over, probably telling them to give him all of the money they have. While waiting for a reply, this happens. The security shutter shocks him when they went up, and the would-be robber panics and runs off toward the door. And here he makes a vital mistake. Notice how he's trying to push the door open. His vigorous attempts result in his hat falling off. The man is now fully exposed to CCTV, but he's determined to open that door. Well, he was, until it dawned on him it wasn't happening. What's he going to do now? It looks like he's given up, resigning himself to the fact he can't get out, probably convincing himself the staff have already notified the police, who are probably on their way to arrest him. Well, let's rewind the footage to see what he did wrong. He walks into the building by pushing the door open. He then makes his way over to the cashier. The shutters go up and scare the life out of him, so he tries to escape. One's brain is scrambled, it's almost impossible to figure out even the easiest of jobs. But he was relieved to get away in the end, thanks to that little old lady. However, the chap in our next case didn't get away. Moving on to the number 3 spot is this man, Derrick Mosley, a 22-year-old who was walking around with his trusty baseball bat one afternoon in July 2013. He had this brilliant idea to rob a store. Unfortunately, he made the wrong selection when entering the premises of a discount gun store in Beaverton, Oregon. Derrick was armed with his bat, plus a 9-inch blade. There's an old saying, never bring a knife to a gunfight, and I'm inclined to include a bat in that equation. When he entered the shop, he smashed up its display case in an attempt to steal a semi-automatic. What he didn't take into account was that people who often manage these kind of stores are gun enthusiasts. After his violent display with his bat, he certainly didn't expect someone to pull out their personal firearm, aiming it directly at him. This is what the shop manager did, who then ordered the young man to lie on the ground. While Mosley was being a good boy, doing as he was told, the manager contacted the police, who promptly arrived and arrested him. I don't know what he planned to do if he did manage to steal a gun, but what I do know is he was thrown into Washington County Jail with bail set at $250,000. I'm now wondering who claims the number 2 spot. Meet 32-year-old John Pearce, a burglar who thought nothing of turning his victims' homes upside down. However, the crime he committed allowed the house to turn him upside down. In August 2008, he tried to enter a home after breaking a small window. While he was forcing his way through, somehow one of his shoelaces got caught in the window frame, leaving him turned upside down. He was in that position for over an hour, struggling and screaming over his plight. Yet the more he struggled, the more stuck he became. While he was hanging there like a bat, neighbours approached and started jeering at him, as they knew he was up to no good. Up to 30 people turned up to watch, and many of them couldn't help themselves as they burst into uncontrollable bouts of laughter. This incident happened in Dartford, England, in a very busy street. Eventually, the owner of the house returned from work and was no doubt unimpressed with an explanation from the offender, who told him that he saw someone else attempting to burglarise the home. He decided to intervene, but got stuck when he pounced into action. Funnily enough, he was holding an hammer in his hand, which he used to smash the main window through. He explained he did that in an attempt for some leverage to support himself. No one believed his story, and of course, although he was desperate for help to be untangled, onlookers refused his pleas. One man who walked past the scene shouted in a display of public humiliation, "Hang in there, mate!" Police and paramedics eventually turned up to rescue him from his plight, but it was only a temporary rescue, as he was then arrested, handcuffed and carted off to the local police station. In court the following day, he admitted his intent was to burgle. The judge branded him as pathetic, sentencing Mr. Pearce to 3 years imprisonment, as it was proven the guy was a career criminal and chronically addicted to heroin. But the question is it possible to meet a criminal who was even less intelligent than Mr. Pearce? Well, our number one spot reveals it is. Let me introduce you to McArthur Wheeler. This middle-aged guy had the audacity to rob 2 banks on the very same day, in April 95. Security cameras picked up this image of the culprit holding a gun aimed at the cashier, or I guess Americans would call them tellers. As you can see, he decided that using a normal face mask like his fellow bank robbers would have done, it didn't apply to him. He approached this job with an air of confidence about himself. He walked into the bank like a celebrity would walk across a red carpet, looking at the cameras and even smiling at them. What did he know that others didn't? Normally, bank robbers will study the building in detail, with a keen interest in where surveillance cameras are situated. They'll go over their plans meticulously, while making sure that they're equipped with masks and gloves and whatever else is needed to hide their identity. Wheeler, on the other hand, did his own unusual kind of planning. Just prior to the robberies, he learned something that he felt was about to change his life for the better. It was brought to his attention, apparently from another criminal who sometimes helps him with bank jobs, a man named Mr. Johnson, who informed him that lemon juice can be used to write messages, and then those messages become invisible. This led to a genius plan that would make him rich. He investigated whether or not this could work with a camera. So he carried out a series of experiments. Firstly, he squeezed the juice from a number of lemons before covering the liquid all over his face. Then he took a selfie with his Polaroid camera. And guess what happened? He was completely blown away when the photograph failed to capture his face. And he took that to mean that it made him invisible. Wheeler was now convinced that he'd found the perfect toolbox for committing crime. And with his newfound confidence, he strolled into a bank with his face literally saturated with lemon juice. As long as he stayed away from any heat sources which would remove the lemon juice disguise, he was good to go. The robbery was successful. He was feeling so good about this new approach that he managed to rob a second bank that same day. However, when the police were handed the security footage, they couldn't believe their luck to see a criminal robbing a bank without a disguise. And they didn't hesitate to send the footage to their local news reporters, with instructions to make sure it was broadcasted on the 11 o'clock news that night. The same day, Mr. Invisible did what he did in those banks. A tip came in almost immediately. And just after midnight, the authorities knocked on Mr. Wheeler's door regarding the bank incidents. And as you can imagine, Wheeler was totally surprised as he said, "But I wore the juice." What was interesting is this. The man wasn't delusional, and he didn't suffer with mental health issues, neither was he on drugs. He was completely sane. The police speculated that when he took the selfie, it was possibly taken from a bad angle, or maybe the camera malfunctioned. It was also possible that lemon juice got into his eyes and it stung. Or maybe he took the picture and missed his face completely. But my question to Mr. Wheeler is, why didn't you double check yourself in the mirror? After all, it could have rescued you from a 24-year prison sentence. And my question to you, the viewer, is which of these 4 cases did you find to be the funniest? Well, let us know down in the comments. Hopefully our brains might have released some tiny molecules during this episode to help us feel a little bit more cheerful. You'll notice 2 more videos on the screen right here, and I'd like to encourage you to watch at least one of them after this one. Well, I'm Royston, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. He decided to intervene. Intervene? He decided to Wheeler, on the other hand, did his own unusual kind of planning. Just prior to the robbies. Wheeler, on the other hand, did his own unusual kind of planning. Just prior to the robbies. I said it again. He took that to mean that it made him and he took that to mean that it made him invisible. Stop laughing.